Life can be so challenging. Where can you go to get divine clarification, help, and advice? Well, may I introduce Natasha Venter, medium coach and direct connection to your guides and angels. Through her podcast, Life Clarifications, Natasha will help you navigate through and create your life's destiny. My name is Kevin McDonald, co-host of this podcast, and I've seen her work and know that through her incredible talent, you can be changed forever. So let's start another episode of Life Clarifications with Natasha. All right, why don't we start another episode of Life Clarifications with Natasha? How are you, Natasha?
I am doing well, and I'm so grateful to be able to be here to support people going through what they need to go through, want to go through, sometimes don't want to go through, and that's why I love to be who I am, because I just have this inner calling to be supportive.
Oh, very good. Well, before we get started, I just have to say today was a fabulous day. One of my best days I've had in 4 years. I'm not going to tell you why, but it's been one of the better days I've had in the last 4 years.
There's some statements in that paragraph that if you picked out, you can totally tell what it was.
Well, of course. But by the way, I needed to tell you something. You know that because you are a psychic medium and also a life coach, and you do all of that extraordinarily well, then you know that sometimes the other side, our angels, if you will, or our guides, will give you signs of certain things. One of which for me is the numbers 1111 or 1111. And I see those things all the time, and they always mean something to me. Because of something I'm thinking about or something I'm doing or something that I want to do. And this kind of gives me validation of what it is. Like today during that event that I was talking about that I was really excited about, at the very moment that Vice President Harris was taking the oath, I was watching CNN, and they keep the time up there in the corner, and the time said 11:11. So from my perspective, that's my kind of a validation that I think that she's going to be a good vice president, and it's a good place for us to be. I think at least that's what I'm. It's always positive on day one. We'll see what happens after a while, but I'm hopeful.
And that's the thing that I want to add on. And I love that there's this one reporter that was saying about how, names today, there's a big planet change today. So names today are kind of the least of my worries, I guess, in my own brain cells. And so there was a reporter today that on this show the channel we were watching, and was talking about how this one politician was taking pictures, doing the scan around, and she said, it's amazing how everyone is just so human at certain times in their life.
Oh yeah.
And that whole statement right there, I think we all forget, because we put situations onto pedestals and we forget to take them off, because we are all human. I mean, we've done it to our parents. We've done it to sports icons. We've done it to even some people try to do it to me, and I try to catch it so I don't do it to them. It's like, even me doing a class with Doreen Virtue, who at that time was at her peak of doing classes, and she's a psychic medium, and she has lots of books and cards out. I actually have her cards right here, and I was taking a class from her, and I was walking right behind her. We came out of the bathroom. She came out of the bathroom a little bit before me. There again, being human. And I looked at her going, she is just like me. She's human. She's breathing. She was still wet from coming back from doing a workout. She still had to do the physical things to keep herself righted. It's amazing. And I think that if we remember that a lot of the politicians and a lot of the policemen and a lot of these beings are just human, having great days and bad days. that sometimes their ripple effect on their bad days are just as powerful as their ripple effect at doing good choices. And it is just what it is. And I kind of, that's what kind of the theme that I wanted to talk about a little bit today is that we're right now, January 20th, 2021.
I wish it was 19.
Yeah, I know I would be a few years younger, but I'm grateful for the wisdom I have. That we're in this big pivot point, and we've been in moments like this several times, especially in the last years, where it's like a bunch of planets are in one house. Right now, they're in the sixth house, which is about divorce, change, getting moving, just that whole big picture of let's get things moving. So, and when I say divorce, I mean endings for new beginnings. Sometimes we have to divorce our couch because we're done with it, and it has to move on to its next destination. Sometimes we have to divorce our car because it's just not doing what we need it to do anymore. So we go buy a new car. Sometimes we have to divorce, our, and the food that we used to love, because it's not home cooking to us anymore, or that homey feeling to ourselves anymore. So that's that whole process of moving things forward. And like for me, in the last 24 hours, found out my husband had a coworker who came down with COVID, or got tested positive for COVID. So the house is kind of on quarantine. Well, as of 11 o'clock yesterday or 12 o'clock yesterday, things were normal. Now they're not.
Well, look on the bright side. You get 2 weeks with your husband.
Well, he's going to go into a test. It'll be a whole week, 7-10 days almost by the time he gets tested on Friday. So he's going to get tested on Friday and see where he sits. And because we had the weekend where a lot of these symptoms started showing up. And so the coworker didn't come to work on Monday. So he's had almost a whole time before he gets tested on Friday. And then this morning got a text that the testing we were going to do in our school district, it was down. So we couldn't even do the morning thing that we wanted to do. And then, there's something else that came up that was totally off key and I was planning on that, but I guess I'm going to do this over here. That right now, especially the beginning of this year, 2021, we're in this big pivot point. And in the old stories and stuff like that, I don't know who remembers this, but the old train stations, trains used to come in, and then they used to get on the part, and then the train would turn it around, or the track would turn around and go off into another track. And that was the old system, because trains couldn't go forward and back because the tracks would only go one way. And so they got it to where at the end that they would get in, and then they would pivot, and then they would be able to go where they needed to go. That is the perfect metaphor of where we're at right now. Some of the personal choices we can make right now, some of the personal moments of accepting the shifts and changes we're on, that if we move with it, kind of go, okay, and go into acceptance. Yes, the grief process. Yes, the okays. Kind of like I had a friend who put an offer into the house, had that, she's very intuitive, had that feeling. A lot of other intuitives were saying, yes, you're going to be getting the house. And I kind of went, because right now, things aren't going exactly perfect. And so if we can accept the change, see how it's going to shift and change in the midst of turning to where it needs to go, but make decisions. Like my girlfriend who says, you know what? Just tell the people we still have the offer on the house, because the house felt good to her. So she said, even though things are changing, and even if I don't get the house, I still want the people to know we're still in the flow of saying yes to wanting the house. So she's making a decision in the midst of undecision being in front of her. And so if we can kind of go back to that story of who we are, what we're doing, many of us can kind of say, ooh, well, that shakeup kind of did me some better.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that you bring that, because we talked about that with conversation with Coriel, and it's interesting. The story that we tell ourselves may not be accurate to begin with, but part of it is that we get stuck in certain ways, and so some of us embrace change, and some of us like change. Some of us don't like change at all. It's
No,
scary, because it can be scary. Change can
it
be
is.
it can be frightening if you don't embrace it. But if you understand, from my perspective, if you understand that everything's going to turn out just fine, and you get to watch what happens, and it'll be okay. And that's at least my opinion. So I wanted to ask you, if you are somebody that does not embrace change, and so this kind of thing just drives you nuts, how do you help them?
I sometimes, if we um, don't, what the way that I go about this is that every human has a hard time with change. Yet at the same time, though, we stop at what is ending. We don't move forward to what the doorway can be in purpose for. And so when I am sitting down, I give a perspective a lot of times on how a doorway that is closing actually has a window to the new beginning. And if we can just remember that every ending is kind of like the end of a sentence in a book, the end of a paragraph in a book, the end of a chapter in a book, or there's sometimes where it's the end of a whole book. That if we kind of take a perspective and see where on the scale is this ending, kind of like my husband's job, I would call that kind of the end of the chapter, because it was like almost a cliffhanger. What's going to happen next? Is he going to be positive for COVID? There's a whole bunch of what's in the next chapter. So there's a little bit more angst, but we still are living in the same house. We're still doing our jobs. Nothing has ended majorly. It's just shifted its story to go, I wonder what's on the next chapter.
Well, quite honestly, because of the COVID, that is probably one of the scarier moments in change, because to me it's almost like getting a cancer diagnosis, where that change is not only unwelcome, it's scary, and
It is scary. I have an understanding, though, and I've had questionable times where I was wondering if I had something. I've had lumps in my breast when I was 21 that I had to go get checked out. Luckily they were just cysts, but I still had to ask the question, what if? I've had other female scenarios where I had to go, my mom had a hysterectomy when she was 21, 22 years old, when I was just months old, so, there, that kind of stuff tends to navigate. And so I have learned in my own story that, do I stand in fear of it? And I'm not talking about lack of acknowledgement, because it's not that I'm lacking acknowledge that this is huge. But the more that I tap into the fear, the petrified fear, the stopping me fear, that I find that the story can get worse from there, and a very slippery slope. But if I hold some kind of, yeah, I wonder where this is going to go. I wonder what's going to happen with this. That a lot of times, that when I'm going through that change, it's not the fear, it's more like, it's more anxiousness. It's more, it's more questionable. It's more acknowledging. And yes, there's fear attached to that, but it's not the horrified fear. It's not the I can't go out because I'm going to catch it type of fear. It's that that ability to kind of say, well, if we do, I'm going to have to walk forward through it. But I've always had that in me. I'm going to just make that disclosure. Not everybody has that in them. When my mom had Lou Gehrig's disease, I cried when I first got the diagnosis, and then I said, what in the hell do I need to do now? When my uncle got Lou Gehrig's, the diagnosis, I slumped on the floor at the next to the cabinet and cried. And then I said, so when do I need to drive down to Tacoma? It's like, I've always had this, whatever hurdle has come into my life, I know that I can either go under the hurdle, around the hurdle, over the hurdle. And sometimes I have to break through it because that's the only way I'm going to get through it. But I know that through that, there's something on the other side.
But there again, how do you help somebody who doesn't have that understanding, that they feel like if they get by the way, before I continue, we do have some listeners. We would love for you to chime in on chat and say hello and talk to us a little bit and stuff. So you're certainly welcome to do that. But because there are folks out there, because there are all kinds of people, and there's 7 billion of us on the planet, that some not only don't embrace change, they don't understand change, but when change comes, they can't negotiate through it. When somebody comes to you and says, I hate change, I can't negotiate through it, how do you help them?
Well, I go back in their story and I say, what change has been in your life that you had a hard time moving through? And then they start off with maybe moving out of the house. And I said, so after that house, where did you move to? Oh, I moved into this great neighborhood, and the house isn't perfect, but I moved into a great neighborhood. And I go, oh, and I start showing them the dots because of the fact that many of us have learned through behavior of our elders, because of 1 or 2 negative changes, because of choices that we personally made, tainted us to be afraid of those bigger changes. And at the same time, though, kind of like for me, marrying my ex-husband, I say ex, who I went through 3 years, moving 7 times, him having a drug problem, coke and pot, doing lying, stealing even from my parents. That change, saying, can I change and be a wife? I try to help people see that even through that change, who did you become after that change? Who did you become during that change? What were some of the lessons you learned during that change? And a lot of times that practicing of seeing the greaterness and being more vulnerable with it, they find that, yeah, actually, I can see that. And I said, now this change that is coming up for you, how can we change your aspect of moving forward here so it becomes your greater good? And that's where, like for me, I'm doing a class coming up about on February 9th about writing a new contract, doing a vision board. What can we do to bring good into our lives through all these changes that we've had? And I'm going to tell you, some of that class is going to be about going over 2020.
Yeah.
Because we can't see where we're supposed to go unless we look at what our life is trying to teach us.
Correct. Now, good question for you, and I hope this isn't too personal. If it is, just tell me to shut up. But at what point in time with your ex-husband, you moved 7 times, so he was on drugs. Apparently, he couldn't find his way home. So, what did you do? When did you decide that the change was going to come and that you needed to exercise your rights and get out of that situation?
Okay, so like I've said before in many different places, I had a safe home. My parents were the safe place. My place out in the world was not where I was safe. And many people don't have safe homes, abusive homes, and stuff like that. I always, I have this habit of seeing the good in a lot of things, which is actually a benefit for people who are doing sessions with me. My personal life, though, if I would have had the guts, I could have said goodbye to him 6 months into the relationship after I found out that he stole $3,000 from my parents.
That'd have been a good time, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a good time. But me, I kind of see the benefit of people and the good in people. And so, and you know, when I got married because I thought nobody else would want me.
Oh, see,
I
now
had a
that's
very
bad
low
place.
self-image. Yeah, I had a very low self-image of myself. And this is part of that relationship was supposed to kick my ass out of. And I meant that with love. that you know, we have these moments where life teaches us to do better for ourselves. And I would say that he did help me with that. I found love for myself after that. But what it took was my father repeating everything I said in the last 3 years. And me listening to him and me going, oh, I've actually been telling you I want to leave him. And he did what I do to a lot of, he helped me the way that I love to help people in sessions. And he was a chiropractor slash, counselor himself. So he does that well. And so with that, I've had good practice learning it from one of the betters of life, that he helped me see the shadows so that I can move forward into the light. And that's sometimes what we need, is someone in our lives when we're ready to do a shift to give us who we can trust, to be vulnerable with, that's not going to sit there and nag us and whine, whatever's that they do. It's those friends, those beings, those people that can just say, you know what? You've got it in you to do this bigger step that you're going to need to do. And if we can find that person, it does help. And we many times are human, like I said at the beginning of this, going through some very human experiences, and we don't have the 360 point of view. So with that, managing and doing what we can do through that will be a benefit, and getting someone to help. If it's not me, find someone else, because we all have somebody who can help us through something.
Now, is that part of the faith that you exhibit? Because when you sometimes initiate change, you didn't know when you walked out of that house for the last time what it was going to be ahead of you. Was it your faith? Was it your father? Was it your family that got you through that period?
I guess it's because once I made that choice and other choices, that I just knew that sometimes it was just that inching my way to the next step. I just know that there is those moments where life is going to be okay. And I kind of went through a process one time where I really had to learn that no matter what was going to happen in my life, I was going to be okay. And yes, I do have a great belief system. When I was 21, 22, 23 years old, I don't know what kind of belief system I truly had. I had this knowing that I wasn't alone. I had this intuitive gift that I just didn't really quite understand because I had such low self-image of myself. I was very much an empath about things, so I was overrun by a lot of energies, and so I had a hard time being out there in the world. There's just these moments, but I can tell you though that I knew through different scenarios in my life that I wasn't alone, that I did have support. And it might have been, my parents weren't Catholic by any means. My grandmother was very Catholic. And so the Catholic school was a half a block up the street from me. So my parents decided to send me there. And so I had some of the Catholic background of Jesus and religion and that kind of stuff. And so maybe that's what I fell back on in my younger years was the Hail Marys and Our Fathers. But at the same time, though, I don't know if I totally, at the same time of being in school, I would see people praying on Sunday and lying on Monday, So to me, religion wasn't necessarily part of the network, but yet that something is greater out there maybe was with me more than I thought they were.
So let me ask you, when you were going to church and you were in formalized religion, did you believe, was your relationship with the divine, your relationship with your guides and angels on the other side, was it personal like it is now? Or the way that they presented it, is it kind of like distant and you can talk to them, but they never talk to you? And I grew up Lutheran, and their attitude is, you can pray, but you don't expect an answer. He's not going to, who the hell are you? Who do you think you are? We're not going to. But it's the relationship that I had now with the divine, with the other side, is a hell of a lot closer than it ever was.
Oh yeah. No, I'm breath in, breath out with me, with my belief in who's around me. It's like I feel Archangel Michael standing at my back right now. And so with that it's not like but back then when I was a kid, I heard a lot of the religion base, and that didn't sit with me very well. Because the Catholic religion, a lot of their ministry is about lying. You're a liar, you're a sinner. And I'm sitting here going, I don't talk to anybody. I'm an only child. I have no friends. I get bullied. And I'm a liar and I'm the sinner. I don't steal. I don't drink. This doesn't sit right with me. It didn't sit right with me. But what sat right with me was when I was sitting in church and that overall feeling of love that I personally got. When I looked at Mary, the statue of Mary, she's right down here.
There she is.
That's what I get. Is the hands out, the love, the heart love. Jesus, when I saw him up on the cross, I saw the purpose of why he was there, to support us through all our dark times, because he had to show that he went through those dark times. And it's not about religion. I understand that Mary and Jesus have no attachment to religion. They have attachment to love, support, communication. I'm here to help you. Let's get moving. Let's do what we need to do.
Exactly. Well, it's when you are the way you are now, and you're getting validations all the time. By the way, if anybody's wondering, when I put her, I'm going to do this periodically throughout the show. I'm going to go like that so that you can write down her email so that you can call her. She's got a class coming up on February 9th, and you can get involved. You haven't sold that out yet, have you?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so she's still got spaces available. So if you'd like to get in there, just go to that email right there, and you can talk to her and get that all fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do that there for another second or two.
And my website is actually angelicclarifications.com. So you just take off the Natasha and there's my email ad or my website. So with that I just love to be a support through changes, through life, through, like I have another session come up, and I've done some animal communication with some animals, and she says, you've helped so much. I'm so grateful that, the cat's still having some small issues and may need a little bit of reboot, but she's doing so much better. And that's what I'm here about, is not to make life perfect or anything, but give the reasons why things are happening. And I have another class that actually I enjoy helping people with, and talking about trusting and doing the work of going through changes. Is I actually have a class where I do 3 1-hour sessions and then 3 20-minute just check-ins. How are you doing? What can we do to help you move forward? Oh, wait a minute, there was an opportunity to have a different perspective. And with that I'm doing those types of classes too, because sometimes when we're going through something changing, kind of like what we've gone through all of 2020, and actually before that, we've actually been getting worked on since about 2012, that there's been this big shift coming up. 2000, 2012, 2020, we're really in these midst of a lot of changes. Excuse me, got the hiccups. As we move through these changes, many times, like I have one session with someone and they wish that they can follow up with it, because then they can create a new pattern of self-belief or self-knowing or self-trust, working through the shames, working through the insecurities of who we are, so that it's like, oh, wait a minute, my life is changing. What can I do? Like, there's a story that I heard somewhere about how somebody lost their job and they bought champagne on the way home and popped the cork, and congratulations, now where do we go?
I've done that.
It's like, how can we shift where we're going so that we can move forward? Because right now, I'm going to say this whole beginning of the year is really set up. The planets are set up. I'm not an astrologer, but I dab myself enough into it to know what's going on. That the planets are shifting into moving us forward. Kind of like I was told today, we have like 6 planets in the 6th house, which is about death and rebirth and divorce and shifting and changing. And if we don't do that work, we don't step into the change, we won't be where life is wanting us to go. And I can tell you, like I've said many times before, that if I didn't do the shadow work, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Now, when you say shadow work, what do you mean?
I mean, going through the negativeness of life. Kind of like for me, working through my dyslexia, working through me not working with electronics. The more that I have rewritten my contract for that, reignited with who I am. I'm the type that many times I can short circuit something. Like after doing Doreen Virtue's course, the kiosk that you get your flight information when you're at the airport, I short circuited 6 of them before the guy came over to me and said, can I help you? Because it took a couple people after me to get them working right. I would leave one and I would see somebody come and work right after me to get it working again. And then I ended up doing Reiki on somebody because I had so much energy in my hands. Well, that energy, when it's working with electronics, isn't always a benefit. And so with that, I've had to navigate through a lot of that shadow work to get myself to where I can be balanced, navigating it to work to where it works with me and I work with it. And it's a lot of it is a self-belief that I thought I couldn't do anything with technology. Writing my emails, sometimes it takes me 5 days to even proofread it before I send it off to my proofreader. So there's these parts and processes that we go through in our lives that we have to almost walk through that moment of, holy crap, Enola, life is teaching me something. I don't like it. What am I going to do about it? Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, here I am. What can I do about it? Now let's move forward. And I'm going to tell you, change a lot of times is those moments.
I agree. But when and there again, because what I'm trying to kind of get out, or to help somebody that is like, I'm going through change. I don't know how to handle it, don't know what to do with it. Is there a method that you use to help somebody understand? Because I guess the first thing is you have to understand what the change is and why the change is occurring in your life and what's going on with that. And don't you have to come up with a plan to how are you going to negotiate through this change to make it and I guess we'd have to talk about a specific example, wouldn't we, about what's changing in your life. And if somebody would like to give us a chat on that, what's going on in your life right now that you feel is either out of control or it's changing and you don't have any control? Because isn't that the big fear? Is that things are changing and I don't have any control over it? It drives me
And that's exactly it. And I can tell you that every time that I released that control and tried, and I'm going to use the word tried, to navigate into the trust category, that's one step that always helped me. Another thing that I use, and this is a mantra that I use a lot, is what is this here to teach me? What is this here to teach me? Is it here to teach me boundaries, self-love, self-respect? Is it here to teach me that I have a better strength than I thought I did? It's one of those things that a lot of times that people don't believe in themselves. And change is one of those times where we can really look ourselves in the mirror and tell ourselves as much good as we tell ourselves that we need to work on. And not everybody can do that either. And that's where, like I said, sometimes getting help helps us go through those changes. We all have these moments where vulnerability awakens us. And being vulnerable is not easy at all. But change is one of those perfect places to practice it. And I can tell you that every time that I've hit change and I stepped into the vulnerability of asking the question, what is this here to teach me? And every time that I was willing to say, oh, wait a minute, my throat is getting scratchy. I'm not using my voice very well. Or, oh, wait a minute, I'm getting, let's say, fired from a job because I spoke too much. Oh, I don't have discernment very much in my life. Okay. Really, what is this here to teach me? A lot of people don't realize that, like car accidents, a lot of people get to go through car accidents, and that's when life changes for them. Or like you tripping over a dog, and falling. The change isn't always easy. And yet, if we kind of go, what is this here to teach me? Well, a lot of times when we are getting in a car accident and somebody rear ends us, we're not looking back to see what life is supposed to teach me. We're not looking back in our lives. We're only focused on the future. We're not in the now. We're not looking at what life has taught us. If we get front-ended, we're always worried about what we've done in the past. We're not paying attention to what we can go forward. If somebody hits us on the side, well, it depends on if that's west or north or east or where that is in that direction. A lot of times that's about, paying attention to 360. What synchronicities are in my life? What animals are playing with me? What's going on that I'm not paying attention to around me? Am I only focused on going forward or what my past is? And I'm not paying attention to some of the side roads I can go. We go down the freeway of life. There are off ramps. We can take little side jaunts to get where we need to go. And so are we paying attention to where life is trying to show us that we can go? Many times it might be a side road that we need to go, and getting hit from the side. It does. Now, I'm going to tell you, though, that sometimes, the accident is simple because somebody else wasn't paying attention. It could have been that, you were not in the right dimension at the same time that they were, and so they didn't really see you. There's a lot of different aspects, But at the same time, though, if you can start at the basics. Oh, wait a minute, I was rear-ended. Okay. I got whiplash in my neck. When the neck is about supporting my voice, it's my throat chakra. So how am I speaking? How am I not speaking? The neck is also sometimes about past lives of being hung, and then I need to work through that trusting that I can be who I'm needing to be, because this lifetime I'm not going to be hung for being who I am. So there's a lot of different reasons why things happen to us. And getting a perspective, sometimes just talking to a friend, we can get a perspective that we're not seeing. Not that maybe that extreme, but yet at the same time, though, there is some things of, oh, wait a minute, I'm not trusting myself, am I? Okay. Time to trust myself, because the next job I'm going to get into, I'm going to be trusting myself, which means that I can maybe move into a manager's job. I can maybe move into a different scenario to get me to where I'm supposed to go.
When those things happen to you, because sometimes for a lot of people, it doesn't happen for them. But when those things happen to you, do you innately know that whatever happens is going to be better? Or it's going to be different, or it's going to be a continuation, or it's going to be part of your experience that you.
It's going to be a part of my experience. I can't tell you, because the change that I was going through to get better internet was an experience. It wasn't for the better. Well, it's now for the better, but it took me, a month and a half of going through the guck to get there.
Yeah, but you learned a lot about Comcast, didn't you?
No, I learned a lot about my own personal energy.
Oh.
I learned a lot about communication. I learned a lot about self-communication. I learned a lot about how the people around me hear me in my communication. I learned a lot about my personal energy, especially when I'm going to speak bold here, blew a hole in the aura of my house because I got so angry that I had so much energy. And as I was sitting there trying to connect my internet, the modem, and you have usually your laptop open, my phone stopped working every time that I got too powerful or too emotional. I ended up having to log back into the modem place over 20 to 30 times in an hour, because every time that I put my hands to it, it would shoot me back to where I had to log back in. And so with that, I start myself kind of, okay, just breathe, calm down. And when I started doing that, actually I ended up calling my kid, because my kid knows how to work with me at that moment. There again, I reached out to someone that she worked through it with me. And within the 15 minutes of her working with me, I stopped short-circuiting my computer. I was able to see the aura in my house blown apart. I actually got the modem working better, and I was able to connect with Comcast, which is now because where we live right now, that's the one and only one that we can get.
Pretty much everywhere, kind of that way. I wanted to ask you, speaking of change, because some people that are very close to you, and they would like to know how your daughter is doing down in New Mexico, because she went there over Christmas. And it's been 20 days. How are things progressing down there?
She just texted me.
That's a big change.
It is a big change. And that's what we talked about while we were down there. The pretense of change, right before Christmas is one of my ones that's on my YouTube page. And then then in the middle of change when I was down in New Mexico, and then after when I came home, that she's actually doing quite well. She actually texted me while we were talking that her couch finally arrived. So now she has more of a full home, which it took her about 3 weeks to get a full home. And I was wondering if the couch was going to come today or tomorrow. I was almost going to text her and say, have you heard about the couch? Actually, I did yesterday. Have you heard about your couch yet? And so with that she's doing great. She suffers from anxiety, and she's not quiet about it. So I think that she'd be fine me saying about it. But and it was funny because she had more anxiety about packing up her clothes and her boxes than she did, and packing her car, than she did about moving halfway across the states down south. And she still doesn't have a job, but she's making the steps to get there. She has a goal. She wants a job for a certain amount because of needing to live on her own again now, that she needs a job that pays a certain amount. So she knows that she had to go for certain jobs. So she kind of decided which one felt better to her by talking to her friends. And then she's going through that application process for it. And at some point in time, she'll get a job.
No question.
No question, because she's being proactive towards it. And yes, I know there's some people that wait 20 months before they get a job, and they keep going through the process. But I'm going to ask the question, though. In the process, while you were thinking about what job you wanted, how was your concept about getting the job when you walked in for the interview? Were you afraid that you were going to say the wrong thing? Were you more on the afraid side of it? Or were you in that, there's a part of me that knows what to do. So I'm just going to be what I'm going to be. I'm going to be my better me. I'm going to trust what I can do. When you were writing your application, filling out the application online, many times it's just answering questions. Were you hesitant? Oh, I wonder what's going to happen with this when you were doing it? Or were you like going, well, if this one doesn't work, I know that there's another one.
See, and that's a major issue, because a lot of folks don't recognize. Well, first of all, if you haven't interviewed a lot, it's a very scary experience.
It is a very scary experience.
So anytime that you have an opportunity to interview, even if it doesn't go well, you should put that into your little back pocket and say,
another time to practice.
And then you're absolutely right. I had an analogy of, I used to be a district sales manager. I had 10 sales guys working for me, and they would go out and cold call. And when you cold call, what that is you walk into a business that you have no idea anything about, and you go and talk to the manager and you try and get them to buy your products. Well, if you're not in a proper frame of mind of believing that gentleman or lady is going to buy from you, don't go. Stay home, because you're wasting your time. And
wasting their time.
Exactly. So when you're in the interview process, you have to be positive, you have to be assertive, you have to be strong in who you are, and that sometimes takes practice.
And that's where I have another mantra that I use. There's a part of me that knows what to do, and I'm going to trust it. Even if I might not be very proactive in knowing computers, but there's a part of me that knows how to negotiate through trouble. And so I'm going to call upon that being in me and say, oh, maybe there's a part of me that knows what to do. And I usually let that part of me speak for me. And I know that a lot of people nowadays, they feel like they're schizophrenic, or they have a lot of different, beings that they feel like are talking with them. Well, use them to their benefit. If you got them, use them. There's a part of me that knows what to do. And if we can just kind of trust that process of knowing that there is a part of us that knows what to do. Like the other day, I was doing a building cleaning, energy clearing. And I know that I have past lives. And so I kind of checked in. I didn't have the tools in this lifetime. So I checked in one of my past lifetimes. Oh, my crone. She was a powerful witch in a past life. And so she helped me out. She brewed her stew and did her work. And then I did my energy work, and we took care of the problem because it was in the magical sense. So, there's a part of us that knows what to do. And I know that I have many tools in my tool bag. And many of you are feeling like I don't have that intuitive stuff. I'm going to tell you, though, if you just put it out there, whoever with love can help me at this moment, of my team members, please come and help me. Because I'm going to tell you that everybody has guides, everybody has angels, everybody has a team that can help them. Believing it or not, knowing it or not, religion or no religion, everybody has them.
Of course they do. That's how it works. But we are the from my frame of reference, we are the warriors because it's tough down here. It's dense. It's the energy's compact. It's dark. There's a lot of people with a lot of negativity to them, and they're there to protect and to help you. So all you got to do is call them in. But by the way, don't forget to say thank you when change happens and it turns out to be good change. Say thank you.
And I would say even the negative change that happens, like me deciding to get married for the first time and not foreseeing the moving 7 times and the drug problems and it was not a total fun time. I mean, there's times where we were sleeping on the floor and I would wake up and sit up and here the floor was the clean air because the rest was all smoke and drugs and and I've never done, can't do. My body and I agree, not going to do it. No judgment towards people who do, but I'm just telling you, I had to get the experience somehow. And the universe said, this is how you're going to get it. And so with that, the even though there wasn't the positiveness in there, there's something in me that came out of it. Mm-hmm. And I could not say that my mom passing away of Lou Gehrig's disease was a positive thing. It was her journey. How was I going to support her journey? Yes, it was very much of a very hard year. But I'm going to tell you, there's some things that good that came out of it, i.e. the house that we have. My mom paid for half. We paid for half. The love that I felt spending those last years with my mom, that last year with my mom, the wisdom that I gained through going through the grief process, and you walk through it, you become a different person. And I'm going to tell you, becoming that different person brings you out magic inside of you. If you really look at how you are different, you have empathy like you've never had. You have sympathy like you've never had. You have this understanding about life that it's not just going to the grocery store and coming back home. There's more. What happens on the way to the grocery store? Who do you meet in the grocery store? There's more to the story when you go through grief. And, there's these processes that we go through that even if they're not good in the perspective, like a lot of us, like today, last night, they were representing 400,000 that have passed of COVID. For one, my love goes to every single one through this process that everyone's going through. There's no bigger change than losing someone. Yet at the same time, though, I want you to know that they never go home alone, that they are so loved. Most of them come back and say, hi, how are you? I'm helping you and supporting you because now I can be here in the ethers where you need me more than I could in the physical 3D form of body. I don't have the emotional attachments that I had when I was in the physical body. And so I'm not so trauma around you. That a lot of them are supporting the people to help. And if you think that a lot of them, not everyone, but there's some of them who they maybe had dementia, that it was time for them to go, or they were really struggling in life. Their hearts ached, their joints ached. Now they're freer. And that me going through the death of my parents and family, that me walking through that. Actually, I can see the benefit, even though my love and my heart misses them so much, my being misses them so much, because I was very close with them, the way that I walk through my grief, I wouldn't be here sitting with you if I didn't do that. And I kind of like who I am today.
So does your mom. So does your dad.
Yeah.
So does your uncle.
Mm-hmm. And my grandparents.
They're all there around you to support and love you. And that's if we can take anything away from today is just the fact that change happens. Good change happens. Bad change happens. Your husband God forbid that he catch COVID, but if he did, that would be a life changing event, and you just do the best you can. Like I say, they're there with you always, in
Yes,
all ways. So,
exactly.
we're gonna do a card. We're gonna play a card trick. Let's do a
Yes,
card.
these are the oracle cards. I don't do tarot, but I do oracle type of cards. And I'm asking, from this day forward, can we have guidance through you, the voices, to help us to our next steps? Now, remember, this is going to be universal cards so it's going to be kind of a universal message, but it's going to tap on you personally somewhere. Because we are all in the midst of this big change. And if we can just take the perspective, I wonder where this is going to lead me. Kind of like when I was driving down to New Mexico. My kid wanted to drive straight through, 28-hour drive. I was kind of hesitant. Being the age that I am, do I really want to drive that straight through? So instead of going, oh crap, I got to drive straight through. Well, what am I going to do? I said, wonder what magic can be created in our life during this time.
Good way to look at it.
What magic can be created? And I'm going to tell you, even driving through the fog, that only you can see the headlights at the corner through the mountain pass, the fog was so thick. And then all of a sudden, poof, it was gone. And it was clear as day. I could even see the brush on the side of the road, and it was the middle of the night. It was like 3:00 in the morning. I can see it was coming on to a full moon. So I could see for miles in the dark right after going through the fog. And I went, perfect metaphor for life. Sometimes we can't see where we're going, and then all of a sudden, boom, this is where I'm supposed to be. And if we can just take that perspective, I wonder where this is going to take me. So the first card is, this is backwards. The camera on this thing is backwards, and it confuses me all the time. The Gilded Knight. Or the Grail Knight, sorry, dyslexic. Romance, illusion, seeking the sacred. And it's a 6 card. So the number 6 is about home, being kind of together with yourself, honoring yourself, resting, doing what we need to do. So he's actually in the moment of asking for help, isn't he? And so seeking, but you have to be willing to be vulnerable and seek before you can move forward. Okay. Sometimes we have to get quiet and breathe. What is this here to teach me? Where am I supposed to go? What is my inspirations? Oh, wait a minute. On the radio, I heard a commercial about something, and it's starting to come back to me now. So I'm supposed to maybe call that company that was on the radio. So there's always something. Forgiveness. A lot of times we need to forgive ourselves for making poor choices, self-perceived poor choices. So with that, how can we perceive our choices to be, here's another learning experience, instead of problems. So 9 plus 4 is 13, which is a 4. So that's a number that kind of goes through, but you can look up a number 4. Right now, it's not coming to me. Then love. So remember to love yourself through the process and go through the moments. So remembering that these cards are the same. They look the same, right? But at the same time, though, that the path, even though it may be the same, taking a different perspective will help you go down the path a little differently. And 4 plus 6 is 10, and 1 is new beginnings. So loving yourself through the new beginnings, you'll get further. Because we'll have movement. Movement is about shifting. So forgiving ourselves for what we've done, what we could have done, loving ourselves through the moment will bring us down the path of movement. And if we can have movement, we'll love ourselves even more. But it's loving ourselves through the forgiveness phase. And 3 plus 6 is 9. And so 9 is about endings. So all endings have new beginnings. There's a famous saying about that, there isn't there?
It's probably in the song too.
Mm-hmm. So partnership is an upside down card. And partnership is about, and when we have an upside down card, means that we're just not looking at it in a perspective. So remember, we can't do this alone. That I would not be my better self in this moment if Kevin didn't push me asking certain questions. Partnerships can bring us to a greater good. But if you notice, it's all the same path, right? What perspective can we take walking down the path? And the last card is the B. The B. It's about luck, industries, sweet victory. So if we're willing to do the work, if we're willing to be the bee who goes out and brings back, and don't they need a community to have a beehive? Don't they need to have that love to be? And so if you can just walk forward and knowing that we can be who we need to be in the moments of where we're at. So trusting that moment. And the last card wanted to jump out at the very beginning. And it's the Queen. And the Queen's about woman, fertility, feminine power, sexuality, and friendship. So remember, if we balance our feminine and our masculine inside of each one of us, we can be a little bit more vulnerable and a little softer to ourselves so that we can be strong in the moments that we need to be strong, be the masculine one, but we can be soft and gentle to ourselves and know that we can be who we are. Because I can guarantee that the queen sitting next to the king would not be who they need to be without a powerful queen.
That's very true. That goes out throughout history.
Mm-hmm. So partnership. Remember partnership, remembering community, remembering to forgive yourself for what has happened. You know, many of us have to forgive ourselves for losing our jobs, and our families have to move to maybe a tent. And we have to forgive ourselves for that moment and know, though, that the next moment we can get a miraculous job and move back into a home. Maybe not the same home, but one that can create love inside of it and inside those walls, because you guys have become a greater family together. You've come back to center again.
Not that we would advocate anybody having to go live in a tent, by the way.
No. I wish that I wish for that not to have to be. You're free from that journey. You're free from that journey.
That is the clinical description of that sucks.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, though, you know, me moving 7 times in 3 years, I had to figure out how to reinvent myself. I had to figure out how to have integrity when I filled out those home applications. And then somebody saying why we were moving so much.
Yeah, how did you move? Don't you have to sign a lease and did you break leases and stuff like that?
I would give my husband money and he wouldn't pay the rent.
Oh, because
they went to drugs.
Busy putting it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to tell you, you are a fine, at that time, you were a fine, forgiving lady. I'm glad that you got out of that relationship.
Me too.
Because, 30 years later, it's all worked out, And when you were leaving that day, when you made the choice that that's it, then you're out the door, and you didn't know what, if you could fast forward 30 years, you wouldn't have waited that long. Because after 30 years later, you've got a good marriage, you've got a nice home, you've got a couple of good kids, and if you could have seen what was in your future, but at the moment, we only get to look at the tree in front of us and the tree behind us.
Exactly. And I'm going to say though, like even my kid, we on the talks down that we had, that, having the scenarios of, because my husband, who I am now, was an alcoholic for many years, that a lot of the trauma, she says, I kind of like who I am today.
Sure.
And she has some trauma. I don't know. I know that she's very empathic, and so when my husband would talk with her many times, that it was a lot of emotional abuse to her, and her being kind of forgot about a lot of that stuff. And she had a lot of trauma when she was growing up. My mom was diagnosed when she was 3 weeks old with Lou Gehrig's disease. So her first year was my mom passing away of Lou Gehrig's disease. Then when she was 3-4 years old, my uncle had Lou Gehrig's disease. And so there was a lot of trauma in those very short years of her life.
Yeah, does she remember either of those people?
No, she doesn't really remember much of her young years. She just kind of put up a block right now. But yet she says, I kind of like all these things made me up to be who I am. And I would say the same thing. There was a lot of foundation work that I was working on in myself when I was married to my ex-husband. A lot of foundation work, a lot of self-belief work, a lot of that who am I work. And if I didn't spend that time doing that work, I wouldn't have had the foundation to open up the way I have after my mom passed.
Yeah, well, and you've done a fine job, and coming from that shy little girl who stayed home and didn't have any friends, and just stayed with her mom and dad, and then going through that, and your mom having it. But that poor lady, she had a tough time too, having a hysterectomy at 21 or 22, and then having Lou Gehrig's disease at 50 something.
Yeah, both my parents passed away when they were 56, 57 years old.
That's a tough thing, and they, I applaud them, and they did a fine job with you. So
well, thank you.
And you are now working to give back to other people who can use your help.
Yes, so, that is my heart calling, my soul calling, is to be whatever I can do to support that being. And I know that I tried to make it very reasonable by doing that class. And so it's an hour and a half class for only $25, November or February 9th, 2001. So if you're watching this in March or April of this year, just know that you can always get a hold of me and we can do a personal class.
And since you brought that up, it's actually 2021.
When the planets are doing big shifts, it really messes with my dyslexia.
I want people to go, well, it's 2001. That's a while ago. No, this is the class. If you are listening to this in late January, early February.
Yeah. So see, even I make mistakes. And how did I react to my mistake?
You just gotta laugh at That's the whole thing. What I get the biggest kick out of people because they take life so seriously. What is the point? You might as well relax and enjoy because you're not getting out of it alive anyway. So just enjoy yourself.
Just enjoy.
Enjoy people like you, who can you can give some uplifting messages. Now and there's one person that's been on the entire time that we've been on, and I thank you for that. You're a wonderful soul, and we appreciate you. Next time you could even, like go to chat and say hello. That would be great.
I just want everyone to know who's going to watch this now or watch it later that you are blessed. The blessing. I love Maya Angelou. She made a statement that your crown has already been paid for. So put it on and wear it boldly. Male, female, dog, cat, monkey, spider, snake, whatever you are, human, non-human, put on your crown because the ones before you gave it to you. So with your self-knowing, self-empowerment, not powerful, but empowerment, know that you have it, that you can do it. There's a part of you that knows what to do. And so if you can just be vulnerable enough to trust that part of you that wants to say something, it may just be the right thing to say in the job interview.
You had me until you brought up spiders and snakes. Then you lost me.
I'm sorry. I have a kinship with spiders and flies and.
Well, good. They can stay at your house.
I work with the fae. I work with the fairies, and so that's total fairy. So those of you that work with the fairies, and you're getting done with having a lot of those beings, just remember that you work with the fairies, and you may need to manage that a little differently so that they don't keep screaming and yelling at you.
Look at that. We've been going for an hour and 11 minutes, which means that it's time for us. So that's 111.
Mm-hmm. Blessings to you and love to you, and let magic be in your life, because right now your thoughts create magic.
And thank you so much for being on the show. And we'll be here next Wednesday at 4 o'clock with another episode of Life Clarification
Pacific time
with Natasha. So thank you, everybody, and be kind to one another, because really each other is all we got.
Yeah.
Have a great day.